Walker makes a run ahead of him. Bergkamp suddenly changed pace through the centre. It's Bergkamp! That's magnificent! The move, and then this, which left Dabby's ass totally stranded.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast. I hope this evening finds you well rested, well nourished, and in high spirits. As you can see before you on the visual medium, there are three beautiful bastards that have joined us this evening and are ready to discuss all things Arsenal. So without further ado, I'm just going to go briefly around the room and allow everybody to say a quick, brief hello to you all. So first of all, Nick, say hello to the boys and girls.
Hello, boys and girls. And Danny.
Chris, say hello to the boys and girls.
Buongiorno, everyone.
And Danny, you big, beautiful son of a bitch, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hello, James.
Hello. Right, should we get straight down to business and claw our respective talons into the maelstrom of turds that was the performance on Saturday? Obviously, those that saw it know it was pretty poor. We lost 2-1 to Brighton in a game that we would ordinarily be expected to win with relative ease. But for whatever reasons, it just didn't go our way. So, Nick, what were your overlying thoughts on the game itself?
Oh, I'm trying to remember because me and Danny did the show, and I think we just read chat for most of it because there weren't much to talk about other than, you know, Arteta, the lineup, and, you know, possible offside goal. And that was about it, really. And, we played terrible again. Probably worse than when we played against Crystal Palace, which was not the reaction we wanted after Monday night, was it?
No, it most certainly wasn't. I find that maybe it's just me being the naysayer, but there's a sort of key element to Mikel Arteta's tenure at Arsenal is that we will perform really, really well for a certain period of time. And then perception or the way the team's perceived, that kind of thing, it will just switch and everyone will start to think positively and will appear to be progressing. And it's almost as if it's that exact moment where he decides to say, right, guys, let's just fucking shit the bed. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on the Brighton debacle?
Do you know what? For the Palace game, that was horrible, and I had rage, but I can't compartmentalize it because, you know, every team has a bad day and we're a young team, and everyone, I think a lot of people said that afterwards, you know, young team, we picked up an injury beforehand, Partey got injured during it, it was a bit rubbish. This game has actually affected me, this Brighton game has affected me more than the actual Palace game has, because I think, number one, it hit home to me that I don't think we've got a chance of top four now because of the way we're playing, because of the fact that Tottenham have been skanking a few results, because I didn't think they were that great against Villa, but they got 4. But it's affected me because tactically, it just felt like we were resetting back 1 year ago. It was almost like the Villarreal nonsense of last year with the Xhaka at left back, and I'm sure we can get into the nuances of the actual performance. But that's why it's worried me more than anything else, because if we'd have just been skanked by VAR and we'd have lost 1-0 and we'd have battered Brighton and we've just been shafted by referees, I feel like I could compartmentalise it. But the way that match unfolded, the sheer lack of intensity and then the lack of ideas and the tactical meltdown that it was, it actually feels like the season has been hung out to dry.
Yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from there. It was just, like you said, the Crystal Palace game, as bad as it was, there were periods in the second half where we actually performed pretty well. And you know what you say, you can look at it, we lost 3-0, Palace are a decent side, they got a partisan crowd at home. So it's one of those grounds where we won't be the only team this season that will go there and lose points. So you think, it's not so much of a big problem. But Brighton at home, you should win. There's no real two ways about it. Danny, you're conspicuously quiet. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about our previous history against Brighton because they've spent most of their life in away from the Premier League. And so in recent years, we played them in the FA Cup in 88, 13 and 15. We beat them every time. And we've had 10 Premier League games against them. We've won 3, we've drawn 3 and we've lost 4. So they do seem to be our bogey team. They beat us 2-1 in 2018, 2-1 in 2019 and 20, and 2-1 again a few days ago. But it does seem the fact that if you ask, even, I mean, Twitter is full of social media is full of moronic Arsenal fans that wouldn't know the shape of a ball if you told them it was round. And if you just said to them, Xhaka left back, no, you can't do that. Well, don't do that. And even those morons know, because when you play Xhaka at left back, you're going to go, well, it's not like he was on the bench coming to left back. He's one of our two holding midfielders that are going to do all the work. Now you're taking him out of midfield, you're playing him at left back, and you go, all right, now what you can do in midfield? I know what I'll do. We'll get our most creative player and we'll make him go and play in central midfield. So you've got Xhaka can't play left back, now he is, and then you get Ødegaard and play him in central midfield, which kind of ruins his game. And then you got Smith Rowe, who always plays best out on the left, and you're playing him in behind Lacazette. And then to top all that off, you're playing Lacazette, who has gone full Giroud and has gone, 16 games with a couple of outfield goals? I mean, I think it's 2 outfield Premier League goals this season and 2 Premier League penalties this season. And then when things get a bit sticky, bring in Eddie Nketiah, who last scored a goal in, I think it was May 2020. No, it's April the 20th, 2021. So, Eddie, you've got an anniversary coming up, the 1-year anniversary of your last Premier League goal. And it seems to be that Arteta will go, no, I am reinventing football. Much like Pep likes to reinvent football. All the Man City fans, the last season's Champions League final. And he goes, I know what I'll do. I'll reinvent football. Like Xhaka did, like Arteta did against Villarreal in the Europa League semi-finals. I'm going to reinvent football. I'm going to do stuff that's never been done before. And they both keep doing it. And it doesn't work. It's okay for Pep because you've got £1 billion worth of talent to bring on and get you out the hole. But Arteta doesn't. What's he got on the bench? A load of kids going through puberty. Useless. And he keeps doing it. And he will do it again against Southampton. And we would be lucky to get a draw. And he'll do it again against Chelsea. And Chelsea will smack 6 past us or something ridiculous. And then I was thinking last night, if he carries on doing this, he's up for contract renewal, isn't he? He's only got a year left after this season.
It's 2, isn't it?
I thought it was 1.
At the end of this season. He's got 1 year left at the end of the season.
That's what I thought. And there's been talk about, that's why he went over to see the Cronkies. And I wouldn't be surprised if it carries on like this. He's not learnt his lessons, hence the title of the podcast. And would they say to him by the end of the season, sorry, Mikel, we've got too much talent here for you to waste by playing the wrong players in the wrong positions?
Right, I'm just going to ask a quick sub-question before I go on to the next one, because you gave me a good point. I'll go around the room in the opposite way to where I went around the first time. So Danny, Chris and Nick. If we don't get Europe, do you think he should leave, Danny?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Nick?
Maybe.
James?
I'm sort of the same non-committal maybe there. It depends on... I think if we capitulate from now to the end of the season, when we had it in our own hands, and there's no real argument you can make against it. In relation to something Chris pointed out earlier when he was talking about the game, if it's one of those things where we perform well and we just get shafted, then maybe you'd think it's not entirely his fault. It's just the elements that conspired against us. As the performance was bad, as we've dropped 6 points from 2 games that we should realistically be winning if we've got hopes for the top 4, do you think these 2 performances are going to have long-lasting repercussions, A, for our chances of getting Europe, and B, for the overall confidence of the team? So I'll go straight to Chris for that one, please.
Yes, I do. I wrote something just before the international window, and it was my perspective on the remaining 10 games that we had. And I said, we need 6 wins, which gets us to 72 points. I think that will get us top 4. We're now with 8 games remaining, and I still think we've got to win 6 of them. And so you're talking about Southampton away, which that'll be difficult because even though they've just been tonked by Chelsea, they will be up for it. They will apply exactly the same approach that Crystal Palace did. They will high press us. And if we play the way we've been playing, they will catch us cold. So we've got Southampton away. We've got Chelsea away. We've got Man United at home. I know we've got West Ham away at some, I think it might be the game after. Leeds at home, Newcastle away, Tottenham away, and Everton at home. And I'm looking at those 8 games and thinking Leeds at home, maybe Newcastle away, Everton at home. That's 3. That means you've got to win 3 of Man United, Chelsea, West Ham, Tottenham, and I can't see that happening at the moment. And we've got to rely on Tottenham shitting the bed, because at the moment it doesn't really look like they are. Although, like I said, I've seen some of the stats and info from the Aston Villa game, and it didn't feel like it was an absolute 4-0 tonking.
I think the thing with Tottenham is you take Kane and Son out of that team, and they are garbage. They just have the benefit of 2 very good two very good forwards, and we don't. I think we're better in the leading up to the front 2, but not necessarily. It pains me to admit it, but I think it's just an element where they have a little bit of an advantage. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on the aforementioned question?
What was the question again?
I was fearing you were going to say that because I can't remember it myself.
Sorry, it's my fault.
It's, the repercussions, A, for our chances of getting top 4, and B, for the overall feeling or, confidence of the team.
Yeah, I mean, losing is obviously never a good thing. But I think, like Chris said earlier, when we lost to Man City, that actually helped galvanise the team and the fan base, because we knew we played really well, probably one of our better games of the whole season. And like I said, we sort of got tucked up a bit by VAR and a last-minute goal. So, it's just how they can react. And things like this is going to be more behind the scenes at the training ground, because I assume it's kicked off with Tavares and Arteta this week, and maybe Xhaka. Pepe's probably had another little cry because, he's been completely overlooked. And so it should do. I mean, Arteta, he's the manager and he gets final say. And yes, he would like to be managing a squad of numbers and of, as talented as what, was at Man City, but he hasn't got that. He's got to manage the players he has available and who are not injured. And for some reason, he wants to play how he wants to play. And he hasn't got the players to do that. I mean, like I say, the last game, defence was already an issue. So his way of fixing the broken defence was to break the midfield, to try and make the defence. And that didn't work. He broke the midfield, and then what did he made about 4 players playing like out of position where they haven't been playing well. And, these are the mistakes Arteta as a younger manager, he's going to keep making. And unfortunately, he's making them at a club like Arsenal. Whereas, like people said before, if Vieira came in, he's already made those mistakes. So he wouldn't be making those mistakes again. But
it's a very interesting point.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're going to have to do. So, the Cronkies are happy with Arteta to keep in charge. And so I wouldn't sack him in the summer if we don't get top 4 or if we don't get Europe. I definitely wouldn't be giving him a contract extension.
Danny, what are your thoughts on this particularly delicious matter?
Yeah, looking like Chris was saying, going through the fixtures, Southampton, they've had a torrid time, smashed 6-0 at home by Chelsea the other day. But then we're away to Chelsea, no chance. We're at home to Man United, and that's one of those games. It's a 12:30 kickoff, which is never good, but we're at home, and that's like a North London derby. 4 means nothing. It's whoever has a good game on the day, and we all know that all the referees in the FA and all that prefer Man United over us. Then we're going away to West Ham, who are one of our rivals, really decent team, and then we're playing a resurgence Leeds United, because they've got the lad back in midfield, and then they've got a couple of their players back, and they're on form again. They've definitely going to avoid relegation. And then we're away at Spurs, 7:45 Thursday, which is going to be an absolute bloody nightmare. Then we've only got 2 games left to go. A resurgence Newcastle, who are a very decent team now, putting in really good results. And then the last game of the season at home to Everton, and the pressure's going to be on Everton in that game to make sure they don't go down. And so every game that we've got coming up is either going to be against someone who's really good or against teams that are back in form, and Spurs are back in form, like you were saying. Those 2 are probably the best front 2 playing world football at the moment as a 2. We know Benzema is really good, but it tends to be him on his own and whoever, one of the many players they've got that comes on and plays with him. But oh dear, as a striking partnership, I don't think there's many better in world football. And the amount of goals they're getting, plus they get each other assists, which is something we haven't been doing for ages. And we know that Arteta's just going to stick with the same old bullshit. And I hate the idea of having him leave, because then we're going to have to go through all this again. But if he's never ever going to learn his own bloody lessons, he can't play Xhaka left back, because he'll end up wandering up the field and then getting left for dead, and then them attacking down the right, which is exactly what happened.
It's interesting because I've got slightly more of an optimistic outlook on this, and I shall explain why. I always look at Arsenal as that the last 2 games we've been in the driving seat, and because of that, there's an extent to which the pressure's on, especially on that Monday night game when we knew the results, we knew we needed to win, we knew the position, and they just sort of seem to instinctively let that get to them. You can almost sense it within the team that they know that they're in a really good position, and they know that it's up to them, and they just sort of invariably shit the bed. With those 2 defeats, it's sort of taken the pressure off, if you will. Now, I don't actually think, given our fixtures, we've got as good a chance as Tottenham of getting the top 4. That's just fact. They've got a better running than us, and we have some very, very difficult away fixtures, a couple of which I wouldn't be at all surprised if we lost, and we lost quite badly, because that's the kind of thing we do. But the pressure's off us now, and the pressure to continue with the way they're going is all on Tottenham. And as we know, as much as we're prone to fucking up, Tottenham are exactly the same, if not worse. I mean, their history denotes all kinds of, just the minute you put them into an ascendant position, they fuck it up. So there's a little part of thinking it would be classic Arsenal to go to Chelsea, to go to West Ham, to go to Spurs and get 9 points, and then just lose the stupid games, because that's the kind of thing that we do. I'm going to move on to my next point, the next topic of discussion, and that was the team selection. I think it's pretty much unanimous across the Arsenal supporting community that nobody in their right mind, unless they've got rocks in their head and shit in their eyes, wants to see Xhaka at left back, because it's like putting square pegs into round holes, and it just completely obliterates whatever balance the team has, because you're taking somebody out of his preferred position to cover someone who should be in that position, and leaving a gaping hole from the position he once came. I don't think there's anyone who can actually stand and give a good argument for it. It doesn't affect stability. If anything, it worsens it. It certainly doesn't do anything for our attacking prowess down the left-hand side. The only way in which I could slightly understand it as a decision is if Thomas Partey is still there. But given that he's not, given that moving Xhaka just leaves Lokonga there by himself with 2 predominantly attack-minded midfielders, Odegaard and Smith Rowe, we're going to get overrun in midfield. And any opposing manager would see that. Any opposing manager is going to look at that Arsenal lineup and think to themselves, right, attack down the right, pressure the guy in the middle on his own, and we'll get some joy. And they will. And the good teams will obliterate us if we keep that. So my question is, after I've rambled on a little bit, and it's going to go straight to Danny with this one, is what do you think, your personal opinion, is the best starting 11 we can put out with what we currently have? And by that, I mean taking into account injuries and such.
See, that's a tough one, because normally you'd say we'd stick with a back 4 the whole time. But when we don't have a left back, and Cedric isn't a fantastic right back, but Big Bob Holding is a brilliant defender. I mean, he's shown many times when he comes in. So I'm going to say he's not going to do it. But I'd go 3 centre-backs. And then, because quite a few teams are doing this around the world, you go through phases where something is in and something is out tactics-wise. And I like the idea of 3 at the back. It's what I used to play on Football Manager. And then I'd see the other problem is we've got nobody up front. There's no one who can score goals in this side. So I'd go a bit crazy. I'd have Martinelli up front. I'd have Odegaard and Smith Rowe playing behind it. No, Smith Rowe on the left, Odegaard playing behind him, and then you have Saka on the right, and then whoever's left, stick him in midfield. It's probably going to be Xhaka, going to be Lokonga, and then so that's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just go out there with 10 players. Fuck it. That would do. I'm notorious for forgetting how to count. But the problem is goals. And defense isn't really the problem, because if you can score goals. But look at this. I made this the other day for people at home and on the bus. It's our last 10 games, and we've averaged 17 shots on goal per game, on target 4.4, off target 6.2, and blocked doesn't matter. We're averaging 1.2 goals a game, James.
That is pretty shocking.
It is absolutely unbelievable. And then in the last game against Brighton, Lacazette had 0 shots of any kind. That's the problem. I don't think it's as much with the fullbacks, the left back, the centre back, maybe even not Partey being out. The fact if you can't score goals, then if you let one goal in, you're knackered. And we've got no goals coming from the side. And we did have them coming from the Martinelli and Smith Rowe. Oh, Chris has got a point. I can tell he's starting to do his research.
I was just going to add to that, just in terms of the stats, Dan. So I tweeted something earlier, and it was from SofaScore. Arsenal have scored just 3 out of their last out of 17 big chances they've created this year. They're 17.6% big chance conversion, which is basically back to the stats you were just quoting, Dan. And that is the lowest amongst all of the 98 teams in the top 5 European leagues this year. So essentially, we're taking lots of shots. We are not scoring very many, and we are not converting many. And it just goes back to your point of the chart you just showed, Dan. That is a depressing stat.
Did you see that other one, James, where there was like you got like a line down the middle, and then you got the positive on one side, negative down the bottom, and at the top it's got all the players. Come down to Lacazette is on 0 for goals and assists or whatever it was, and then below him and Nketiah was on minus. Now I can't remember what it was. If anybody in the chat knows, let me know and I'll go and find it. But to have a striker that's on minus anything, and that's the problem. But what I mean, you've got Pepe who can score goals. You've got Martinelli who can score goals if you put him in the right position. But you can't rely on the kids to come and get us out of trouble. It's infuriating. I'm not even sure what the answer could be. It's definitely. I'm sure playing Martinelli up front is not the answer.
I made this point the other day on. Sorry, I made this point the other day on Twitter, and I stand by it. I reckon it's true. You take the top 10 teams. We've got the worst strike force out of the top 10 teams by a mile. You could tell. I mean, there are probably 3 or 4 teams in the Premier League, maybe 5, who, if we took their main striker, wouldn't improve us. That's the problem for me. So, Nick, what would you say from keeper to striker is our best starting team with what we have available?
What, at the moment, or if
at the moment, not in general. So taking into account the absentees.
Well, obviously, I think the back 4 and the keeper pretty much speaks for. I think everyone would pick the same, wouldn't they? Or do you mean from Saturday, what he would pick?
Yeah, take into account who we have available for Southampton. So if you were picking your best starting lineup for that game.
Well, I think also, obviously, Ben White, Gabriel, Cedric, Tavares, obviously Ramsdale in goal. I don't think Partey probably will be back, so you probably stick Xhaka and Lokonga in midfield. Saka on the right, Smith Rowe, and then what we got? Odegaard. And I suppose it'd have to be Lacazette up front, even though he's not scoring, because he scored 2 goals from open play and 2 penalties all season in the Premiership, and Eddie scored any. So I just can't, for how bad Lacaz's playing, I cannot justify bringing in Eddie, because I just don't think he's going to do any better. And he's been, I think Arteta brought him back. That was one of the first things he did as a manager, was to bring him back from his loan spell at Leeds. And I think he played him for about a year. And I think Danny said that. I think he scored about 3 goals in a calendar year. And then Arteta's gone off him. And for some reason, we couldn't sell him because no one wanted to pay pretty much anything for him, really. We were talking peanuts. So, yeah, that's what it did. But, I mean, I have no clue what Arteta's going to do, because when I was thinking about this morning, I remember going back a few years ago when I think when Wenger was still managing, where all our fullbacks got injured over the case of about 3 months, even the backup ones. Can you remember that, guys? And I think we played like Johan Giroud at right back and another centre half at left back for about 3 months.
Oh, yeah, I remember this, yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah. And Arteta was captain at the time. And I'm thinking, someone should say to Arteta, remember when that happened? You've now decided to play yourself at left back instead of anyone else. So I don't know why he thought that would, be a good idea, but he's got to learn, isn't he?
I mean, look when Arteta came to Arsenal, James. He was at Everton. He was their Martin Odegaard. He was setting up goals, scoring goals, did it his entire career. Came to Arsenal, defensive midfielder, and it ruined his career. And then that's why he got all of his injuries, because he was getting kicked and shoved, and that wasn't. And he should look at that and go, well, he's kind of ruined. Maybe that's why he's doing it. He's ruined his career, and he's going to ruin other people's careers. I'm going to make you play where you shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe he just thinks to himself, right, fuck it. I remember what Arsenal did to me. Other people are going to suffer. I think I said exactly the same point on the last podcast as I'm going to make now, as our real strong point this season has been that we've got from back to midfield an incredibly good base. We've got 5 players when they're all fit across that back 4 of Tierney, White, Gabriel, and Tomiyasu and Ramsdale in goal, who will prevent us from conceding too much. I don't think our biggest problem throughout the season has been scoring goals, but now we've got that coupled with a defence that's it's not anywhere near as strong as it used to be. The point I made on the last podcast, I think that if it were me, and God knows I wouldn't know what the fuck I'm doing. If it were me, I would be looking at a back 4 of Tavares, and then Gabriel, Holding, and White, because you can let Tavares go forward and you can use 3 centre-backs to go into a 3 and give us that little bit more solidity if we keep Lokonga just in front of the 3. I think the minute you start putting Tavares / Xhaka on one side and Cedric, who, to his credit, has not been bad, but let's be honest, he's a big drop down from Tomiyasu. And then we're susceptible. You take into account Partey's not there as well. Another point I made on the last podcast is that of our best 11, Partey, Tomiyasu, and Tierney are the ones we can ill afford to replace because we don't have anywhere near in our ranks currently players capable of actually stepping up and going into that position and playing it as well as them. So if it were me picking my strongest team, it would be Ramsdale in goal. It would be Tavares, Gabriel, Holding, and White at the back. And then I'd play Lokonga and Xhaka. And then I would play Smith Rowe, Odegaard, Saka, and Martinelli, because at the moment, Lacazette's putting in those performances where he looks like he's eating his way out of a pot noodle bath before he's come onto the deck. It's just, sometimes he looks fit, sometimes he doesn't. And sometimes he can be, the focal point of the team and he can be really useful. Other times he can just be unbelievably shit awful. Where he just, if you were a central defender, you'd probably think, oh, this is a walk in the park, this is. We need, a centre forward, someone, it was never going to happen, but someone like Vlahovic, someone like the guy at Benfica who's pretty good, whose name escapes me.
Nunes, isn't it something?
That's Darwin Nunes.
Darwin Nunes, yeah.
We put a good centre forward in that team, and it's transformative. I struggle to be too optimistic when I look at the team, the base of the team, how it's set up. I think the minute you put Xhaka at left back, it just opens us up to a world of shit. And I think I'm going to go on to my next point now, which I'm kind of forgotten. Yeah, the next point was in relation to Lacazette and Nketiah. I think we've got to look at them now and say it's not working. You can't have your central striker who scores 4 goals in a Premier League season. You're at 30 games and 2 of those have been penalties. It's not good enough. I don't think, I'd have to look up the stats, but how many of the 20 teams in this league, how many of their centre forwards have got more goals than Lacazette? It's got to be the vast majority.
How many centre backs have got more goals than him? Look at that list there. From open play, he scored 2, one against Palace, one against Southampton. That's it.
So I can give you some stats here because I've got FB Ref in front of me. Norwich City are bottom of the league. Timu Puki's got 9 goals. Emmanuel Dennis
just going to say that.
9 goals. Maxwell Cornet, who's been injured and away at the African Cup of Nations, he's got 7 goals. Richarlison's got 6. Raphael for Leeds has got 10. Callum Wilson has got 6. Shea Adams has got 7. Ivan Toney's got 12. Ollie Watkins got 8. Mope's got 8. Zaha's got 11. Vardy, who spent half the season injured, he's got 10. Raul Jimenez has got 6. Ronaldo's got 12. Jared Bowen has got 9. You've got Mason Mount, who's playing from in midfield in an advanced midfield position, has 10 goals.
How many's Lukaku got?
I think he's got about 3, hasn't he? I think he scored all of his against us, and that was it. But he's got about 4 or 5. But even Lukaku's scored more goals than Lacazette, James, and that just really sums it up. As I've just reeled off all of the teams, every team has a striker, sort of centre forward, that is banging in goals. We're relying on Emile Smith-Rowe and Bukayo Saka, who've both got 9.
One of my reasons why I think you've got to put both of them in the team at the moment. My question is that if we're looking at the Southampton game, it's long been mooted as what people think we should do. But do you think it's finally time that he starts Martinelli up front instead of Lacazette? Because Lacazette's just not working, Nick.
I thought he would have. I mean, we talked about 2 months ago when we officially, let Aubameyang go. We thought we may have to. We all said who's going to be the top goal scorer of our strikers. I think Danny said Martinelli. I said Lacazette, and I don't think either of that has worked. But I mean, Arteta's been there 2 and a bit years now, and he's had Lacazette with him. He's had, we brought Nketiah back. If he doesn't know how to play them to get the best of their abilities as strikers and score goals by now, then either they're terrible footballers and just need to retire or go somewhere else, or he's just not a very good manager, because that's basically what a manager does. You just get the best, out of your players whilst, hiding their weaknesses as players. And I mean, obviously Arteta Lacazette played quite well, and when you see when he has played well and scored goals, it's not when he's got his back to goal, trying to come in deep, trying to pick the ball up. That's not his game, and that's never been his game. And pretty much since we signed Aubameyang, that's what he's been asked to do for 4 years. Since January 2018. And Eddie, we know he's a fox in the box type of player. Can we change the whole team round to get the best out of Eddie being a fox in the box? Because I think he is decent from 6 yards, unless he's trying to head it from 6 yards, and he's not that decent. But yeah, if he 2 years he can't get the best out of him, he's got to try something. What do you say, James?
One of the things I've always been quite interested about is I wonder if there's another team in all of Europe's top leagues that have got their 2 centre forwards with their contracts running out in the summer. Because I bet there's not. I mean, that is, when you look at it, a fucking terrible situation for you to be in. That those players, whether it be consciously or otherwise, probably know that they're not going to be here next season. And whilst you can probably say that both of them are very good professionals, I don't think there's not an element where that doesn't play on your mind, where you probably think, well, I'm not really going to be here next season. I've got no stability. I've got no clarity on my future. So unless I'm playing for a contract, and both of them probably know they're not going to get one, you're just not going to be at 100% for your team.
They're definitely not going to go in for a 50-50, are they? At this stage, if you like say Lacazette go in for a 50-50 and get a broken leg, he's basically got he's probably going to miss the whole of next season, because I suppose no one will even think about touching him until January if he did.
And that could, for all intents and purposes, that's his career then, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, his age. I mean, I couldn't believe it the other day when she said Benzema was like 2-3 years older than him. And I think you thought it'd be the other way around. You thought Lacazette was like the 34, 35-year-old.
I mean, in my opinion, you've got to look at them, and the simple fact is it's not working. They're not scoring goals. They're not contributing enough to the team to warrant their place. I think we've been found out, we've been sussed out. There's not a team. I don't think there's a team in the league now that will look at us and think, we're in trouble here, guys. They're all going to think they've got a shot, and they're all going to think we're not massively much of a threat, especially centrally. So I think Martinelli is brilliant from the wing. He's a handful. I think he can play centrally much in the same way Sanchez could. I don't think his stature and his ability to hold the ball up necessarily matters too much. I think he's got all the key attributes to just be a pain in the ass. I mean, Vardy isn't the most physically imposing player, but if you were a 6'5" central defender, you'd fucking hate playing against him because he's always there and he doesn't give you a moment's peace. For me, Martinelli's got the potential to do that. He's a goal threat. He's good. He's quick. He's able to run the channels, and Lacazette can't do any of those things. And I think if you put him down the middle and you give him Odegaard, Saka, and Smith Rowe on the opposing sides and behind him, then we are a far more offensive threat than we are at the moment. Chris?
100%, 1,000,000%, I agree with you, Jimbo, because if we think about the Southampton game in isolation, so we know the way that Hasenhüttl's teams play. They press high, and so if you've got your bank of defence, midfield and attack, and they're all able to press high because you're playing a waddling Frenchman who, if he gets behind, is going to be caught up quite easily because he's gassed after about 20 minutes. You're quite happy to press high up the pitch and put more pressure on. But if you play someone like Martinelli off the lines, then as a back four, you're not going to play out by the halfway line, are you? Because Martinelli has shown, like he did with the goal against Chelsea a couple of years ago, that he will happily sprint away into the distance if he's given the chance. So as a back line, and as a defender, as a former defender myself, you're immediately shitting yourself and thinking, okay, I'm going to drop off half a yard or two. If you as a defence drop off half a yard or two, but your midfield and your attack press, there's gap. That's space in between your defence and your midfield. And that is where someone like Martin Odegaard, Saka, Smith Rowe, if you play those guys interchanging, if they've got space, then we could have a happy day of it all. And so that's what something like Martinelli does. It doesn't have to be like everyone's just spent too much time worrying about the link-up play that Lacazette delivers. But I just think that's been overrated the whole time that we've seen him as our main focal point. I think you give defenders something to worry about with pace, channel running like Martinelli will do, and let the three behind him work their magic. And I think it would work. So against Southampton, high press, that will work. Against Chelsea, they're going to have more of the ball and they will naturally be pressing us in our own half. Martinelli on the counter. Yes, please. You've got Man United. Someone like Harry Maguire up against Lacazette, he'd love it. Someone like Harry Maguire up against Martinelli, he would hate it. So what should have happened weeks ago is that we were trying this even for the last 20 minutes of games or something. But because we've been pushed into this corner now because of Lacazette's terrible form, we are now at a point where none of us actually know because we haven't seen it. We all just feel it. And I'm just at the point where I'm just done with Lacazette and it's like, let's just give it a go. Martinelli up top.
Danny?
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. As much as we love Lacazette and he's been at the club for so long and done so much, he's never really lived up to the goal scoring threat that he should have been. He misses more often than not. I mean, this season we've already seen the number of goals that he scored or hasn't scored and the chances that he puts wide. And you think, well, one's going to go in sooner or later. But it doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem like anything's going to go his way at all. There is something I wanted to ask you, James, with another list. You know, I do like a list. Look at that. These are I've made it narrow this time so it doesn't block everyone off. The top list of players, Guendouzi, Maitland-Niles, Traore, Aubameyang, Willian, Mkhitaryan, and Ozil, he fell out with all of them. And all the ones below are all the ones that he let go for one reason or another.
Are we talking about Emery or Arteta?
Arteta. So all the ones
let Ramsey go, did he?
No. Yeah, it was Ramsey left at the end of 2019 and he was in charge in December 19.
Ramsey left at the end of Emery's first season, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, good. Well, ignore that then because I was going back through Wikipedia and checking that and I looked at the date when Arteta was made manager. So ignore the Ramsey one. Could have made him stay if we wanted, but he's rubbish in Scotland. And so you look at all those other ones, Saliba and Nelson and Mari and Bellerin, Tavares, El Neni, Pepe, Mustafi, Kolasinac, Socrates. How many of these players on this list, if they're at the club now, could be maybe even starters? I mean, imagine having Traore in midfield. Not Willian, not Mkhitaryan, not Ozil, but Maitland-Niles could be playing left back, he could be playing right back. Guendouzi, like someone said in the chat earlier, that he could be one of the first ones. He could easily make our starting 11. Saliba, well, he can play. Did someone say he can play at left back? No. Who plays at left back? One of our players can play. Tomiyasu, that's who. There's someone who could. Bellerin could do something. But all these players here, that's a hell of a lot of players to fall out with, excluding Ramsey. A hell of a lot of players that now we could need at the club because we've got so few players and we're having to shift other players from their better positions to that. But amongst this lot, is there anybody there that would score goals? Maybe one.
The only one on that list who potentially could is Pepe, but he's too hot and cold.
It just is concerning the number of players that he just throws away. I mean, I'd love to see Torreira at the club. Remember when he first signed? The first 6 months, he got 3 or 4 man of the matches in a row. I mean, fantastic.
I think Torreira's problem is that he just didn't settle in England, and I think you see that with some. It's like, especially players that have been more accustomed to, say, Spain or Italy, they come to Britain and they don't like it. And I think he's one of those. And I think it just didn't work. I mean, he was a good player. It didn't work. Guendouzi, he's a bit of a prick, so you can sort of think.
Sometimes we need a little bit of a prick in midfield, don't we?
Admittedly, but I mean, let's be honest, any one of us four could probably do a decent job in League One in central midfield, so it's not really the best barometer.
Oh dear.
But be honest, James, I mean, we're all old enough, we work. Even if someone is a bit of a prick, if they're good at their job, it really? And as a manager, you're going to manage some pricks. But I mean, if they perform on the pitch, that's a good prick.
I think the thing with Guendouzi is he enough of a good player to be a prick? I don't think he is. I don't think he's good enough to be a prick. I think if he got his head down and knuckled down, he'd be a bloody brilliant player. But if his attitude's even half as bad as people have said, then it's the best. You don't see any of Europe's top clubs queuing up to buy him. I think if he give him credit, if that part of his personality wasn't there, I think he'd be a bloody brilliant player. If he had the right attitude, he would be fantastic. I just don't think he does. And that's one of Arteta's decisions that he's made that I actually agree with. And there's quite a few he's made in terms of players he's let go that I agree with. And that's irrespective of whether or not we're weaker with them or without them. And you could certainly argue we're a lot weaker attackingly, offensively without Aubameyang. But was it the right decision to let him go? I think it was. It was the right perspective for right decision for everyone. So I think we're all universal in agreement that Lacazette just ain't doing it. So I'm now going to go on to my next question, which is kind of veering wildly off topic. And it's something Chris and I actually spoke very briefly about this morning. I was planning to mention before I realized he was on. And that is Unai Emery. I am not Unai Emery's biggest fan, but I'm certainly not his biggest naysayer. I actually think that his record and his past accomplishments show him that he is actually a very, very good coach. I think he came to Arsenal at the wrong time. He had the wrong attitude, he had the wrong mentality, and he had the wrong mindset. And it just didn't work. But I think he was treated a little bit harshly as well, purely because he was the guy that came after Arsene Wenger, and so many people wanted Wenger to leave, and so many people wanted to stay, that whoever came in was sort of, riding on a chariot of shit in terms of they were never really going to get the freedom to do what they want and implement like Arteta has. Now, my question is, there are a lot of ways you could look at this one way or the other. Do you think that Arteta has done a better job than Emery did? Danny?
You made the point there that I was going to say. It was you go back as far as you want. It was whoever took over from George Graham failed, whoever took over from Alex Ferguson failed, whoever took over from Matt Busby, Kenny Dalglish, and all these world-class top managers, best in their game. Whenever someone takes over them, it is the poison chalice. And I don't think even if Arteta were to come in after after Wenger. Some would say he's failed now. But to try and take over a club that's in that situation is no manager in their mind would take it over. And he's gone on and won the Europa League. And now he's gone on, he's taken his team, Villarreal, who are a very average team, with Frankie Cock in midfield, Gabriel version 1.0. Is he there? Is he at his last
He's
club?
at Valencia, isn't he?
I think he might have been at Villarreal, then gone. I know that he's had him at one of his clubs before and after Arsenal. And he's taken them to the Champions League semi-final. Drew 1-1 at Bayern Munich, beat 1-0 away, 1-0 at home and 1-1 away. And in Bayern Munich, I mean, you got Lewandowski there who scores 500 goals a season. It's probably very boring football. In our WhatsApp group, somebody, I think it might have been Femi, put in a picture of his tactics. I didn't read it, but he said the players that he took on and the players that he took off, and that's some messed up formation. And then you look at that and you think, God, it's the classic. It's not you, it's me. It wasn't him, it was us.
See, my theory on it is that, he came to Arsenal, and very much the same thing that happened at PSG is that he had a certain way of playing, and that way of playing got him a lot of good results when he was with Sevilla. And he won the Europa League 3 years in a row. They got to the final with Arsenal. And then won it again with Villarreal. If I'm not mistaken, that's how it went. Maybe there's a year gap somewhere along. But he just didn't suit two so-called big teams with fan bases that expected attacking football. I mean, some guy there says Unai Emery fell because of the language barrier. But you have to give the man credit. He didn't hide behind a translator. He physically put himself out there and he tried to speak the language. And I got a lot of respect for him for doing that. Because I thought, it's not easy to go to another country, another culture and learn that language all the while trying to implement your views onto a team. But he did it and he tried. I would be the first to admit that he wasn't right for Arsenal. And letting him go was the correct decision. And it wasn't going to go anywhere other than where it was going. But there are times I look at it, and it's more one of those times where Arsenal are sort of in a bad vein of form. That if we're being 100% honest with ourselves, if it was Emery in charge now, we'd all want him gone. If it was Emery in charge at the end of last season, we'd want him gone. Now, whilst I don't have anything against Arteta, and he's obviously a young manager with a lot of potential, but he's going to make mistakes. I just sometimes feel when I look at it that whilst I don't for 1 minute think Emery is the right man for Arsenal, I do sometimes question whether or not Arteta is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally. I think that it's perfectly fine to have an opinion about someone and have that opinion change. So if you're going through a period where Arsenal aren't having favourable results and you start to think yourself, well, I don't know if the manager's the right man for the job, things aren't going our way. It's perfectly okay to have that opinion. And then, say, 6 or 7 games down the line, when things take a turn for the better and the team are performing, you can just say, well, I was wrong. Arteta obviously knows more about this than I do, and he's actually turned things around. And I started to think that at the beginning of this season. If someone had said to me, James, what do you think about Arsenal? What do you think about Arteta? Do you think he should still be here? And they'd said that question to me at the end of last season, like I said, then I'd say no. Because 8th is not good enough for Arsenal Football Club. And this is the first time in 25 years we've not had international football. And if that had been Emery, he'd be out the door. Now, I understand Arteta is a young manager and Arteta is a project, and you have to keep faith in that project. And I do admire the club for doing so. But I think if we get to the end of this season and we're in no better position, if we do capitulate, and as much as it pains me to say, you look at the personnel we have available, you look at our defensive options, our midfield options, and our striking options, then for all intents and purposes, we could go down shit creek pretty swiftly. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope I'm wrong, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you think, we've been hit and we've been hit in key positions and we probably can't keep up with those around us. So I'm going to just shut the fuck up for a minute and then ask Chris my original question. What do you think?
But with the Emery thing, this is really hard because Arteta won us an FA Cup, and those memories stay with you. I will never forget the times when was actually allowed to go to Wembley and see my team win an FA Cup, and it is a lovely stick to beat.
Sorry, a piece of trivia, Chris. I can remember very vividly watching Me and Daniel were watching the 2015 FA Cup final at my place, and you were in the bloody crowd on the TV.
Yeah, I did. I got a few text messages that day saying you're such a poser because the camera just literally swung around to me, and everyone had gone for beers at half time, and I was like pointing at the camera and stuff.
Was that the Villa game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, he won us a cup, so that's good. He has had the opportunity to clear out a lot of the dross, and it's been painful. You've got the whole COVID factor that was different for anyone. So let alone a manager that's brand spanking new into his first top flight role. And then the style, I feel like when it's worked, the style and the way in which we've played, it's felt like, yeah, I understand what we're trying to do here. Whereas with Emery, we went on that like 20 odd game, like undefeated run. And there were times when we were all a bit like, oh yeah, we beat Everton 2-0, but bloody hell, they had like 25 shots on goal and we had about 12 and, got 2 goals. So we got away with that.
There was one game at Watford where they absolutely fucking peppered us, wasn't there? Yeah. Like 32 shots on goal.
Yeah, it was like Opta's most shots conceded or something at the time. So there was that side of it. But then, so the flip side, Arteta has been backed. He's been given much more money than Emery had, and he's been given much more control than he had, and he's had time that Emery hasn't had. So I find it a really difficult question to answer, because for everything that Emery had that went against him, Arteta's had stuff that's gone against him as well, and it just I just see them as two different people on two different paths at two different times in Arsenal's sort of history. And I don't know which way this one's going to swing, but I think I'm with you, James. If we go into some sort of death spiral, I can't honestly say that after 2.5 years, if we're finishing 7th or 8th at the end of this season because we've lost to Southampton and then we've gone on an absolute stinker, I can't honestly say this man has done the business for us, even though he's won us a cup, even though there's been COVID, even though he's cleared out some of the dross. I'm finding it really difficult.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Nick?
I just think when Emery came in, I mean, that's weird to say because Emery came in to manage Arsenal, so did Arteta, but they've both done completely different jobs or tried to do different jobs. Arteta has pretty much took a hammer to the first team, got rid of Danny's Bundesliga bastards, got rid of so many players, which is probably what Emery should have done when he came in. But for Emery's, 18 months, they actually tried to, for Arsenal, to sort of buy their way out of trouble. They thought he could come in, just buy 2 or 3 players, even broke our transfer record, with Pepe. So they did back him. And he gambled that he could basically get us back into the top 4, straight away, and get the last of, the Wenger old boys actually motivated and playing well. Unfortunately, like I said, they didn't. Ozil just didn't care. Mustafi didn't care. Socrates, none of them really showed up. So halfway through, that was after that 20-game run at the start of the season that they all thought, no, we can't be bothered. We're going to make fun of your accent. And then he sort of tried to get him out, but I don't think that's Emery. That's not. He's more of a tactical, maybe slight man manager. He's not. I don't think he's the sort of player that a manager could go in and just completely rebuild the side, and bring in all youthful players and have a project, a process, or whatever you call it. I think someone like if Arteta was to finish next summer or even this summer, Emery wouldn't be a bad manager to bring in now because we've got a decent base, of defence, sort of half decent midfield. We just need, decent strikers, and we've got a good side. That's the sort of manager he is, and he just couldn't rebuild a whole side from scratch, could he?
No, I mean, like I said, the elements have conspired against them both to a certain degree. I can't remember if I've asked your thoughts on this, Danny. I've had something of a brain fart myself.
I was just looking at their statistics as Arsenal manager. Arteta, with this decent run, I think he's just dipped below the win percent ratio because Unai Emery had 78 games, won 43. That's a win ratio. A win percentage of 55.1. And Arteta, 121 games, 66 wins, which is just over half, and his rating is 54.55. And so now he's doing done less, but like Chris said, he won us the FA Cup and the Charity Shield, and we beat big teams on the way to those finals. And not final, Charity Shield isn't a final. And then we saw earlier on in the season we had that run where we scored, what's that, 14, 15, 19 goals in 5 games. And then we've seen other points in this season where we had 4 clean sheets in 5, and the only one who scored against us was Liverpool. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so
I think you could argue the biggest difference between them two is a cup final against Chelsea. One lost it, one won it.
Because the European Cup final, I mean the Europa League final. But see, that's what is so infuriating about this lot. We go through patches where we score loads of goals. We go through patches like against Liverpool away, where we were defensively magnificent. Then we played Man City at home, and we were attackingly fantastic. So much so Pep said it's one of the best teams he's played against. And then we go at points where we concede 1 goal in 4 or 5 games. And then it all completely falls apart. It seems like we can only get this run of games for like you said at the beginning of the show, James, 4, 5, 6 games, and then it all completely falls apart. And then Arteta, we see this with so many managers, when things start going wrong, they start getting desperate and making crazy choices, like he's high on crack or something, by putting the wrong players in the wrong positions. And all these players, you look back at all of our games recently, even when we're doing really badly, he'll still only use 1 or 2 subs. All the other players are, where's Elneny? Elneny hasn't played a single minute of football since he come back from the AFCON.
I mean,
he's a
surely
decent, reliable midfielder.
Pepe is not the best. But if you're chasing a game, he's a wild card, he's chaos, put him on there. Because he can just, if we're chasing a game, then he can do what he did against Wolves, where he got us back in it. I mean...
Yeah. At least he knows how to score a goal.
Yeah.
But then
do you know
what will happen is... Go on, Chris.
I was going to say, Pepe's involvement in that game for Brighton, I was just looking at, he only had 4 or 5 touches less than Lacazette, with 73 minutes less football, because Lacazette got the full 90, Pepe had 17 minutes. And the problem with Pepe is, like you said, James, he gets that, he's a chaos merchant, which is good. And then he just does idiotic things, like, in the last few seconds, passing the ball back from a corner to then be offside. It's that stuff which drives people mad. But Sanchez used to do stupid stuff as well. And if Pepe's on the pitch for 73 minutes instead of Lacazette, and he has 2 chances or 3 chances where Lacazette's having none, Pepe's probably putting one of those away, because he's a decent finisher.
It just seems to me like he's one of those options that I assume Arteta's not using, because Arteta just doesn't like the player. He doesn't trust the player, or he's got little or no faith in the player. It's just, you think that if you're 2-0 down at home, did he come on against Brighton? He did, didn't he? I can't remember.
Yeah. For the last 17 minutes, Pepe did.
Yeah. Give him, we were 2-0 down. Give him the last 20 minutes. Give him the last 30 minutes. Don't leave Lacazette on, because it's a waste of time, because after 20 minutes, he's blown out his ass. Okay. Right, guys, I'm going to move on to the final segment before we go into our listeners' questions. And it's just very simply a preview of the Southampton game, which I can't remember what day that is. Is it this weekend?
Saturday, 3 p.m.
Saturday, 3 p.m. So basically, the questions are simply going to be, do you think we'll make any drastic changes to the team? What are your thoughts on how the game will pan out? Are you concerned? And do you think we'll win? I'm going to go to Christopher with that one first.
I think it depends entirely on whether or not Arteta is sitting at home right now thinking, I reckon if we did the same thing that we did against Brighton, we'll get a different result. That's my biggest fear, is that we see Xhaka at left back, Alexandre Lacazette, just in the 11. In order to just, for me to feel a lot more comfortable, just go Ramsdale, Tavares, Gabriel. I quite like what you said about White playing as a right back and Holding in central defence. I'm not Holding's biggest fan at all. But the idea that White,
he's
who is
more
a
secure
right
than Cedric is.
Yeah. And he's going to be more like Tomiyasu as well. If you think that's the sort of style Tomiyasu is, you play Lokonga and Xhaka next to each other, play Odegaard, Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli. You can even swap Martinelli and Smith Rowe so that they're at times one's playing as a false nine, Smith Rowe. He can then drift out, just cause some problems. If we play like that, then yeah, I'd have some optimism. But right now, I'm feeling it difficult because I'm starting to lose trust that Arteta's going to pick the right side and not just revert back to his old mistakes.
Danny, sprinkle some of your infinite wisdom.
I feel just like Chris. I was at some point this season. I was anxiously looking forward to the next game. Come on, we're gonna improve. We're gonna run them ragged. Even Ramsdale has stopped his long-ranging attacking from the goal. Right foot kick all the way down left-hand side onto Martinelli or Smith Rowe's foot as he was running on and doing stuff. We've even stopped doing that. In the dying minutes of the game against Brighton, the ball went out for a throw-in. Then we threw it to one of our players who then kicked it at one of theirs and it went out again. And then we ended up going backwards with the ball with a minute and a half to go. Chris, I mean, you were at that game, weren't you? What were the fans doing? You weren't there?
No, I was in Rome. Sorry.
Oh, went in Rome and all that. But yep. I would have been screaming, we saw with Chelsea last night. If you need a goal, the whole time Ramsdale should have been playing as a sweeper, getting that ball, lobbing it down that end, and putting everybody up to try and get the equaliser. But we weren't doing it. We were losing possession. We were coming back out into midfield. We're going all the way back to Ramsdale. And you're thinking, this isn't what you do when you're 2-1 down at home to a team that you should be beating. And I'm thinking, oh God, do I really want to watch the game? I'm going to watch the game. I'll watch all of them. But it's so infuriating that I'm just thinking, well, what stupid decision is Arteta going to make? And sure as sugar is shit, or whatever the saying is, we win this one, and then we beat Chelsea, and then we'll all be going, it's back on, and that is driving me nuts. It's like being in a slightly abusive relationship with a club. They're grabbing me by the balls with one hand and tickling me under the chin with the other, and I don't know which one's coming.
You see, I don't actually think, or I certainly didn't at the beginning of the season, that we'd get fourth. I don't actually think it's massively disastrous if we don't. I think getting fourth is beyond expectations. Reasonable expectation is to be around the 5th, 6th mark. I think if we get any lower than that, well, then we're below expectations, and that's when conversations have got to be had. Nick, what are your thoughts on Southampton?
Well, I think, to be honest, for Arteta, whether he's copied a bit of Wenger and also Pep, where he's got this way of playing, this formation in his head that he wants everyone to play and do, whether or not we've got the players, that can do that. I mean, like after that Palace game, obviously, Tavares got roasted a few times, Partey got injured, and then you look up and you've got, Brighton and Southampton, and you think, right, what is the easiest solution there? All right, Partey's injured, we haven't really got anyone else. Right, we'll tell you what, we'll stick 3 at the back so we don't really have to worry about Partey playing. And that will also help Tavares because he doesn't have to do as much defensive work because he's got 3 at the back. But obviously, he doesn't want to do that. I remember quite badly under Wenger, and I think there's someone called a team meeting and for his last year or so, they tried to force him to play 3 at the back. But then, obviously, as soon as anything went wrong in the game, he went back to the old 4-2-3-1. But yeah, I'm just trying to think what Arteta's going to do because, like I said, what they say about Wenger, and people say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And the last 2 games, we've played terribly playing this way. So irrelevant. I mean, why does he think we're going to play well and score a goal if he keeps playing the way he's playing?
I don't think you can have any one particular setup these days. I mean, every team's got a selection of players that offer different things. So invariably, that tactical setup and threat and defensive stability, all of that is going to change ever so slightly depending on who's on the pitch, and it's no different from us. In terms of the game, before I go to the big fella and ask him his predictions, I'm going to give you all mine. I'm slightly, maybe strangely confident. I think traditionally we do okay at Southampton. We've had the odd blip there where someone will score a wonder goal or we'll get absolutely fucking walloped. But I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think they've just been battered by Chelsea, so their confidence should be a lot lower than ours. I mean, that can have an adverse effect in terms of that you've got a team that's just been battered. And that seems to happen to Southampton quite regularly, where they will just get absolutely fucking walloped by someone. Whether it be Leicester putting 9 past them, Chelsea putting 6 past them, but it will happen. But I think we'll beat them. I think they're going to be expected to attack us. They're not going to sit back. They'll probably press us high, but I think that it's the kind of game that suits us. I mean, when we're under pressure, if we play away from home against a team with lots of physically quick players like Palace have, but Southampton don't necessarily have that. The guy up front's decent, but in terms of their attackers and midfielders, they don't have anyone like Palace do. So I don't think they'll offer the same kind of threat. I think if I was going to be bold enough to give you all a prediction, I'd say we'll win 2-0 and it'll be relatively comfortable. I should state that I very rarely get these things right, by the way. So, Danny, what are your thoughts?
Just looking at Southampton's recent results in the Premier League, they've lost their last 3, 6-0 Chelsea, 2-1 Watford, Newcastle beat them 2-1, all at home. There those ones are. And then they beat Everton and Norwich, beat them both 2-0 at home. And then they had a run of playing against Spurs, Brentford and Man City, who all played nice football. They drew 1-1 with Spurs, beat Brentford 4-1 and drew 1-1 with Man City. And so you're looking at that and you're thinking, God, dear, it must be like being an Arsenal fan. There's no predictability in any of their form. So you'd look at the Newcastle and Watford don't really play the beautiful game, do they? I mean, Chelsea, they're just a bit psychopathic. You don't know which one's going to turn up. But the fact that Spurs, Brentford and Man City went there, they all played like good, decent football like we tried to do, and they got a result. I'm going to go for 1-1, and it's going to be head in hands time because I'm just dreading seeing what muck up he's going to do. Then the Twitter is going to be an absolute nightmare afterwards. So I'm going to just delete Twitter and just not bother with it. But I'm not confident. I'm not looking forward to it, which is a shame because we've got so much promise in that side.
And you're not looking forward to it at all?
No.
So am I of the four of us? I'm the only slightly optimistic one.
Yeah,
seemingly.
I think it's going to be a draw, and that's not enough. A draw, 100% takes us out of the top 4 running. It doesn't really do a lot for us. My gut feel is we're going to end up with a draw. I don't want to say that because I'd love us to go there with the confidence that we could be picking up a win and hope that Brighton can actually do us a favour against Tottenham. But Brighton are not a great team. We should
I think it's still worth remembering that we are in the position where we have a game on Tottenham. If we win that game, we're level on points. So we're not out of the race by any stretch of the imagination. There's still everything to play for. And football's a funny game. You never know what you said could actually happen. We could beat Southampton, Brighton pull one over Tottenham, and then everybody's perceptions completely revolve back around to where we were previously. So it is worth, I think at the very least, I think it's worth remembering that we're still in a good position. We are not in a bad position. We're not 20 points behind. We're not dawdling out of the race. We are still in the race. And whilst we've certainly let slip a favourable position, we are still in it. So those questions, that wonderful assortment I put forward to you guys, that's all I have for today. So I'm now going to hand over the proverbial range to that portly so-and-so over there with the beard and the moonlight provocatively glistening off his bald head, and he's going to hit us up with some questions.
I'll just ask Nick if he wants to do them because Nick's been very
Nick's
quiet.
going to do them. Sorry, I completely didn't read that on the side there. I was just
you were busy hosting the show. You can't host and read at the same time. Have you found them, Nick?
Yes, I found them. I didn't click the button properly, did I? Got to click it harder next time.
Oh dear.
All right. Got from my mate for Seal on Twitch from Romania. I'll ask James this because he ain't had a lot of questions. Who do you guys think could replace Arteta?
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, let's get it done.
I mean, yeah,
sooner or later.
If you're looking at, again, this is something in relation to what I said on the last podcast. I think if you take out of the equation Patrick Vieira as an ex-Arsenal player, then I think his suitability factor takes a little bit of a drop. If you forget that, I mean, like I said before, he's my favourite Arsenal player, or at least one of them of all time. I absolutely adore that man. I would have him as Arsenal manager in a heartbeat, purely on sentimentality and purely on the fact that it's who he is. I think if you take all of that out of the equation and Patrick Vieira's just say another coach from France and he's not got the connections with Arsenal Football Club, then I'd argue that people's sort of view of him or people's willingness to have him as Arsenal manager wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be the same. People just wouldn't see it that way. But
he plays good-looking football.
Yeah, but like I said, but if you take into account how Palace have done, that they've got a good group of young players, and he's drastically turned around a team that pretty much beforehand had all its focus on, like, you know, strong, older professionals that would just do enough to avoid relegation, and they certainly would set the Premier League alight. They'd have the odd good result, but no, they're predictably average, and I think Vieira's changed that. But there's always the step up to take into account that there are a lot of managers throughout history who have done, Roy Hodgson is the best example of this, who've done really, really good jobs at relatively middle to low level teams. And in a minute, they've tried to take a step up to the so-called higher echelon of the Premier League or whatever European league they might be in, they've suffered. I think Hodgson greatly suffered when he tried to manage Liverpool, and he's greatly suffered when he tried to manage England, because that was maybe the step too high from his ability. Whereas you look at how he did with Palace, how he did with Fulham, he did a really good job there. And I think that in going back to the original question of who am I going to pick, I mean, Jesus. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, if we're talking money is no object and they're going to not really, we can just pick whoever we want, then there's perks for Simeone, but I think we'd be a fucking boring team, but we'd be a winning team. The guy at Ajax is probably going to go to Man United. I think he's more suitable to a team like Arsenal. I don't necessarily think he'll be able to go into Man United and change it the way it needs to be changed. I think as far as squads go, they've got more problems than us. And they purely because they're a team of individuals. It's not a team. It's just 11 players who don't really like each other on the pitch. And they've spent a fortune to get that. So you could argue that they are in a probably worse position than us. So Ten Hag's got a lot to do. That's his name, I just remembered. He's got a lot to do when he gets there. But to be honest with you, that in terms of up-and-coming managers, a lot of people say Graham Potter at Brighton. I mean, maybe. Really, other than Vieira, who I think is the obvious choice, should Arteta go in the summer, and I don't think he will, by the way, I really can't think of anyone.
That's not bad. So you said that the next Man United manager and Patrick Vieira. It's not bad. Right, so next question I'll ask Chris. Sort of the same question with Rocky in the chat. Is Arteta the answer, or do we need a change?
I think, as we've kind of discussed this evening, it kind of feels like we need to see how this season shakes out. Because if we finish 7th or below, then it's been a bit of a collapse. And you're starting to look at it and say, it's not like we don't have enough data points now to say, right, well, this hasn't worked for 2 years running. So is this ever going to work? If it's not going to work after 2 years running. I saw that Guillaume Balaguer thing and I tweeted it about it because he made a comparison with Emery and Arteta and talked about how Arsenal fans need to have patience. And I was like, hang on a second, we've got patience, because I still think 70, 75% of Arsenal fans, well, the ones that I interact with online and offline, broadly in favour and want Arteta to do well and support him. So there's that desire there. So is he the answer? I don't know at the moment. I feel like I'm wavering now, and it feels like I'm almost, once I get to the end of this season, depending on how the tree shakes out, if it's been another collapse, I'll probably say probably not. Maybe we do need to go in another direction. If he's managed to turn this around, let's just say we win 5 out of the next 8 games and we just miss out on top 4 by a couple of points or something like that because Tottenham have just edged us. I don't know. I'd probably be a bit like, well, that's with no striker. That's with an absolute useless centre forward, French centre forward that has played for most of the season. So if he can get the right players in the right attacking positions, maybe we can have a better fist of it next season. So long answer of answering the question by saying I don't really know.
Yeah, it's bad that we're 2.5 years into Arteta's reign and we still aren't sure on him. It's like, so what Danny said, he's like, oh yeah, he's the man, and then he go and do something stupid for a month, and then all of a sudden we're brilliant again, and then it's terrible.
It's torture, Nick.
It's so up and down. It's just better off just to leave us down all the time. If we didn't have any expectations, then you can't get disappointed, can you? That's why I should support Norwich, because we have no expectations at all.
At least you'd have a good goal scorer.
What, Pookie?
Yeah.
They do better than...
Incidentally, Timo Pukki, who is the fucking spitting image of Jock.
He is.
Yeah, he does look like it, mate.
Jock will not appreciate me saying that either.
Oh. Well, if he come on here, he could tell us, can't he? All right, next question. I'll go to Danny. It's from Boy10 Dio. Question: has Arteta planned to hand out debuts at this point of the season, or do you believe he expected us to have 0 injuries at all?
He'd have to be a fool to think. We've just been unbelievably lucky with injuries this season, up until where we are now. Previous seasons, Arsenal have been known as the Croc Club, where constantly players are out for 3/4 of a season. I'm not going to go over them. We all know who they are. And I remember after the January transfer window, people were complaining that he'd let too many players go. And I said, of all the top 19 players, Premier League minutes for us this season, we still have 18 of those 19 players at the club. But then we've seen you get Tomiyasu out, Tierney out, Partey out, and now you've got, we may have 18 out of 19. Now we've got 15 out of 19, and you can't do stuff with 15, especially when Eddie and Lacazette are not in form. So you've got 13 players doing stuff. He doesn't use them. I'm not going to go over that again. What I've been moaning about, the fact that he isn't giving enough players enough time for them to be match fit. And then he doesn't play them, brings them in. They're not match fit. They have 2 shit games in a row. Tavares has half a game, gets dragged off because he's not match fit. And then he doesn't seem to be learning his lessons like that. All those kids are on the bench. The amount of passion and enthusiasm, that's passion with an SH, and enthusiasm those would have if they were given a chance. And a couple of people have said in the chat that Mika Beerith, the young man we got from Fulham, that he's our top goal scorer in the under-23s this season when Balogun isn't scoring. And he's been training with the first team. Someone else in the chat said Lacazette might not be playing on Saturday. This is the time when he'd be looking at that going, oh, fuck me out.
If Lacazette's not playing, does that mean someone's offering an all-you-can-eat buffet?
Possibly. Crab sticks for everyone.
I think it means Arteta's decided we're going to play with 10 men.
Well, I wouldn't put it past him. But it's going to look at that and go, oh, if only I'd have given you 10 minutes here and 20 minutes there and half hour here when we were 3-0 up. But he hasn't. And this is when we're paying the non-dividends from it. And it's a nightmare, Nick. So,
well, I did hear that. I've heard a rumour that Lacazette was seen leaving Tesco's with 800 Easter eggs this Sunday, so that might have something to do with it.
He's currently in a chocolate coma.
Right, so the next question, I'll go to you, James. Clock Orange. Has Arteta really improved any players? And I'll just add a bit more to that because it was quite well documented at the Man City Amazon documentary that he helped Raheem Sterling early on in his Man City career when he moved from Liverpool, and he said he was really good with the younger players.
I mean, it's very difficult to know with any certainty what he's done or whether or not he's had a good effect on people. But you would assume, yes. You would assume that players like Saka has continuously improved from season to season. Smith Rowe has continually improved from season to season. I mean, players like Lokonga have the potential to be better. Players like Martinelli, he's improved from where you take into account his massive injury. He is at a point where he is going to improve. And you look at all of those players and they're sort of teetering on that point of having a really, really breakout season. I remember with Fabregas, there was that moment where he had a real breakout season when you knew he was going to be something special. Now, whilst as much as it pains me to say it, I don't think Smith Rowe or Saka or Martinelli are quite at that point yet. I think there's a little while to go before they really, have that moment where they put themselves on the map, so to speak. I do think he's improving players in the team. I think that he's brought in players that have improved the mentality of the team, the attitude of the team, the perception of the team to an extent anyway. I think when we have our first 11 on the field, then we're a good team. We are probably, if we're being honest, probably 4 or 5, well thought out, clever and important signings away from this team being a really, really good side. I feel there's been a lot of negativity and naysaying about Arteta in this particular episode, and quite a lot of that's come from me. But I've always been a big advocate of that. If you're going to be detrimental about someone, you have to have the honesty about your personality to be able to say that they have very good points. And from the start of the season, Arteta has really done well with recruitment. I said it once, I'll say it before, that the players we brought in and the impact they had and the direction to which the team is headed now is a vast improvement. And whilst we're currently having a bit of a bad patch, let's not forget that he's really managed to unite team and supporters in a way that we haven't seen for a long time. And that's not through mistake. It's through clever planning and clever recruitment. And you would assume that he has also had a positive impact on the players. Whenever we have a bad time, there's no negativity coming out of the club. Even the players that have left, Özil, Aubameyang, they're big name players and they've got a lot of fans at Arsenal. But I think most rational people can see that those players in particular have brought it on themselves. And there's no way in pretty blue hell that you could think that Arteta is the sole one responsible for either of those two departures. In my opinion, without having the first bloody idea about what goes on behind the scenes, in my opinion, those two players left because it was their time to leave and they brought it on themselves with a bad attitude. So, and I think him doing that will have improved players as well. More to the point, I think the fact that he, whether it be right or wrong in your eyes, has implemented a system in which you are punished for poor performance and not following the rules, irrespective of your standing in the club. I think that's very important. So to cut a long, rambling answer short, yes, I do. I think he's improved quite a lot of the players. I think he's done a lot of good work that have improved Arsenal. It just seems that consistency is the issue.
Lovely. I thought you'd frozen them for a second. Right, Chris, what's this one from Cliff on Twitter? Do you think there is anything in the fact that we played so brilliantly under, what does that say?
Earpods Charlie.
Earpods Charlie.
Can somebody help me out here?
I don't have a clue what Earpods Charlie is.
That's his assistant, isn't it? The one with the earpods always in.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the pit crew.
Yeah.
So the question is, do you think I'm trying to work that out. Do you think there's anything in the fact that we played so brilliantly under? Is he talking about Stevenberg?
Yeah, I think what he's trying to say is, do you think there's anything in the fact we appear to have played really well when Arteta wasn't there that one time?
What game was that?
My personal, that was the Man City game, wasn't it? Because he caught COVID and we were very, very good.
Yeah.
But the game where we were at home and Pep said it's the best attacker team we played against.
Yeah, but the thing is, we were in form before that. We spanked Norwich, didn't we? The game before that, over the Christmas period. We had actually been in a decent run of form. So I think the confidence was just flowing in the team. So I think it was probably a little bit coincidental that there was that one game. I think they're so interchangeable, and he'd have been on the phone, in the earpods to Arteta the whole time and vice versa, that it was essentially Arteta's team as it was. So I don't really think it has anything to do with the actual, that one particular performance. I think they are, as Nick said, the pit crew are one and the same entity, and therefore I didn't think
they're a living organism.
Yeah, they are.
It's a very delicate ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know who AirPods Charlie is, but
It's
It's
got
Albert Steinenberg.
Albert Steinenberg. Oh, that sounds lovely. I'm pretty sure he used to play up front for Borussia Dortmund, but
Boy, I tend to put it Albert Stuyvenberg
close
without that weird accent.
Albert Stuyvenberg.
That's him.
Right, let's go with Danny. This is the next one. Where's it gone? There, get rid of that one. So, and 2, 3, 5, 100. How many transfer windows will be enough to give Arteta a chance to stay if change doesn't happen?
1. He'll do it this summer. Edu's got plans. They didn't do bugger all in the January transfer window other than get shit out for them to do nothing in the summer transfer window. Big things are going to happen. 250 million quid's worth of stuff's going to happen. We're going to get 2 strikers. We're going to get a central midfielder. We're going to get a backup right back, and we're going to get lots, maybe even a new winger. Expect some really decent players, even if we're going to get into the Europa League. And it's probably better for us if we do finish in the Europa League position than in the Champions League position, because we'll do better in the Europa League. But I was just reading on Twitter, someone said that it's typical that Unai Emery is a master at European football until the time he spends with Arsenal. So before it and after it, he was, and sums up.
In fairness, he did get to the final.
Yeah, but then got smashed 4. Great goal from Iwobi, though. That's what I'm taking away from. Or was it the Ox? It's one of the two. Come on as a sub. Yeah, Iwobi. Of course, the Ox would be gone by then, wouldn't he? Having a bad day. Yeah, so, 1 window. That's all he needs.
Can I just jump in on that just for 1 second? So I've just pulled up something. I'm sure I saw something on this with the wage bill. I don't know how true this is, but apparently because of the exits that we've had since last summer, our wage bill is like essentially halved. And whereas we've been used to seeing our wage bill being not more than Man United, Chelsea or Liverpool or Man City, but certainly we've been close to them in recent years, it's now drastically reduced on that. And if we've freed up that much wages, then as you said, Dan, they've got to go big. If they have freed up that much wages, if they've got the money and they really are ambitious enough, KSE, they have to.
Well, on the ABW website, bergkampwonderland.co.uk, not com because we're English, it has, you go to the transfers page, and I've just gone to transfer market and got all the players' wages. And if we got the full, like when Mari's gone on loan to Udinese, he's on 70 grand a week and they're not paying 70. But if they were paying all those wages, just over 1.2 million pound a week we've saved in wages of all those players going. And that adds up to something. So you can say at least £1 million because the players that have gone on loan aren't getting all their wages paid and Aubameyang isn't getting all of his wages paid. So you definitely £750 million a week. But when you're doing that for 4 months from January to 5 months till May? Actually, their contracts wouldn't be up until the 1st of June, would they? Or 1st of July, one of the two. So, yes, they're saving millions.
It's keeping their powder dry, basically, what you're saying is, Danny.
Hopefully. And they go and buy Lukaku.
No, don't. Take it back. Take it back, Danny.
You don't want him. He's going back to Inter Milan.
Yeah, he should have never left, really, should he? To be fair. Right, we've got the last question. I'll ask Chris to make up for the silly AirPod one. Sorry. So it's Ted Watts. Did anyone see the Daily Mail article regarding it not being profitable for Arsenal to go into the Champions League this season?
I have not seen that, but I would find that absolutely bizarre and somebody trying to sugarcoat it. Maybe there's somebody in the Arsenal press team that's got...
I did see it. I can explain. Basically, what they're saying is the extra 50, 60 million we would get in TV revenue would be half of what we'd need to spend on players to actually compete in it. Basically,
wouldn't it be something along the lines of, in the Champions League, we get 6 group games and then we'd probably be out in the next stage. That's 8. But if we got to the semi-finals of the Europa League, that's going to be, 14 games? Could it be something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but... Yeah. I get it, but I just can't see it. It's everything, though, isn't it? It's not just the money. It's also the attracting the prestige. It's also about being able to tell players, look in the direction that we're going at now, like prospective players. We're going in this direction. Last season, we finished 8th. We've cleared out a team. We've got a young squad. We've got the youngest squad in the Premier League. Oh, and we've just finished in the top 4. And by the way, that's why you're joining us, because in 3 years' time, you're going to be playing for the equivalent of what Liverpool are like now. That's the kind of angle. But if you finished in the Europa League, it's another season, and you're a player and the agent looking at it going, that's what, like 4 years, 5 years now without the Champions League. And the Premier League, the reason why UEFA are making all of this noise about these wild cards is essentially to appease the Premier League teams, because it's the Premier League which has the most difficult league, and it's not difficult to finish. Do you get top? Is it top 2 or top 3 in France that get the Champions League spots? But whatever it is, it's a lot easier. Yeah, it's a lot easier to finish 3rd in the French league than it is to finish 4th in the Premier League.
The 4 of us could register as a team in the French league and probably finish 3rd.
Yeah.
You're lucky he's not listening, but you just look at the fact that Villarreal
he knows I'm fucking right as well.
But Villarreal won the Europa League last season, beat Man United in the final. Now they're in the semi-final of the Champions League. I mean, that must give all teams some kind of hope, because it's not like they've gone and spent 300 million quid, not like they've done a Malaga or a PSG or any of those other clubs that they go and spend an absolute fortune. They've done that. You could say they've done it properly.
You could.
Back to you, James. I think Nick's gone quiet. He's worn himself.
No, I was just saying, like I said, I mean, I see where they're coming from. It's just how they pick, stats from one column and ignore them from the other. Yeah, they're looking at, we'd need to sign extra players to, have the squad to cover in Europe. But people are forgetting, if we don't get back into Europe in the next 2 years, we'll have the Adidas sponsorship once renewed, the Emirates, whatever car who are sponsoring Arsenal and all this sort of thing. When these are up for renewal, these companies are not going to be want to offering us more money for being further down the leagues and not in Europe. They're going to want to offer less money, and that's just how it is. So I see what the paper was saying, but I think that was just to sort of stir the pot a little bit.
Someone's nose was asking about Alba's contract. Chris, do you know what happened with that?
I thought that we'd paid a big chunk percentage of it until the end of this year, and then from the end of this year it's terminated. So that was the thing that really frustrated me. And I know it's a really divisive topic talking about Aubameyang. I still sit on the side that I feel like unless we were going to get somebody in, we should have just kept him, because you cannot tell me that bringing him on for 25 minutes at the end of a game to play up front is not a better option than, again, I have to repeat myself, seeing that waddling effing Frenchman looking like he's shoved some popcorn down his pants so that he can have a little munch when no one's looking. It just drives me mad, Lacazette. And like I say, personally, I think we should have kept him, and the fact that we are paying for his contract still.
See, I'm sort of the other side of that opinion, whereas I look at it like, if his heart's not in it, then he's a detrimental effect on every other member of the team. And I think if he was taking the piss, if he was late, if he was showing disciplinary issues, if his heart wasn't in it, if he didn't want to be here, get rid of him. Irrespective of whether or not we got cover, I think it was the right thing to do. So on that note, gentlemen, I think we're going to do, as is customary at the end of these podcasts, to doff, or what's the word? Our proverbial cap. I'm going to start again. I've just had a massive brain fart and can't speak. As is traditional at the end of these segments, to doff our cap to a man, lady, or organisation that we are familiar with, friendly with, or just appreciate. So I know from the chat that Danny has one, so I'm going to go in first. So if you guys don't have one, let's all prepare one and make it a wonderful end to the podcast.
Yeah, one from the podcast itself as a collective. Congratulations, Dennis Bergkamp. Today he became a grandfather, maybe even a godfather too. So that's great. It's lovely to see. But he's going really, really bald, which breaks all of our hearts. And then one for me and myself. Everyone's probably heard of Colin the Spider Catcher. Lived next door, my neighbour for 19 years. He had a season ticket for a season. He was a gooner. He was going to be 70 this year. He wouldn't stop smoking. Got lung cancer. Wouldn't stop smoking. Spread to his brain, and he died yesterday at the age of 69. So people, smoking's not cool. Don't do it.
And this is someone who's quit for 5.5 years as well, so I can second that.
and I've never even tried it. I don't need to try it. Like swimming with sharks and parachute jumping and spending a night of passion with a jockmeister. I don't need to try it to know I don't like it. And
the latter one is something I think everyone should try.
As long as it doesn't involve any hand witches. So people don't spend tens of thousands of pounds giving yourself diseases that are going to kill you. And I'm going to miss Colin. Sad times.
Poor Colin. That's terrible. So, Chris, Nick, have you got your gentleman's shout out?
Nick, you want to go first?
That means Chris hasn't got one.
I've got one. So I really like some of the stuff that he's been doing. I've been on a couple of podcasts with him. Albert JTV. He is on Twitter. AUMOH57. Albert does some really, really interesting stuff. I like listening to him. He's got something out with Amanda. I think coming out. It might even be out at the moment or not, but you can listen to it tomorrow after you've listened to this. There you go. Danny's put it in the chat. So listen to Albert. He's a good guy.
I'm certainly going to have a look-see at that. Nick, have you got one or do you want me to go?
Oh, I got one. The last bloke who followed me on Twitter is a nice bloke, sent me a DM as well. He's just started up on Twitter. So, I mean, I did feel like saying, delete it straight away, but, that's what he's done. And that's AJ Gunner 88. So he's a nice bloke. Give him a follow.
I'm going to do as is customary of mine and give my shout out to Jock, to Daniel, to Mike, to Sim, my guys. I miss them all. I love them. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, bless your socks. There you go. There's AJ Gunner's tweet link in the chat. And thank you very much for hosting, James. Very nice of you.
You're more than welcome.
Organised. I love it.
I'm starting to concern that I haven't been on for a while, and I do two shows back to back, and we've been absolute garbage in both of them. So I think don't ask me to come on for the third one, and hopefully we'll win.
At least your microphone and internet's done really well today.
It's been better than it has been previously. I took Danny's advice and invested.
Excellent.
So on that note, I think everyone's sort of sulking off into the darkness, into the night, into their own proclivities and dark, sordid habits. And on that note, we can bid everybody who's taken the time to watch, to listen, to contribute to this show, to wish you all thank you, to say, I hope you have a lovely evening, and to say arrivederci until the next time.